Well, as much as people don't like Andrew Tate, and I don't agree with everything he says, but a lot of stuff he does say about being strong, being resilient. He talks about all the issues going on in the world, but he says he's quite a stoic thinker himself. Like, put away all the bullshit like his Bugatti and all this crap. He thinks like you need to be the best version of yourself. You need to be strong. You need to like go to the gym, look after yourself. Like, what can you do today? You can earn money, so go and earn money because that's what you need in today's life to make you even stronger. So like, he preaches these things, which are stoic teachings at the end of the day. Um, but I think everybody out there should be taking on board some advice like that. It doesn't have to come from Andrew Tate; it can come from
I
anybody.
think what the problem is with Andrew Tate and what the problem is with what Jordan Peterson had as well is these guys have identified a problem with society. In particularly, the problem is with men. They've
Yeah,
identified that their niche, their target audience is men. So what's
yeah,
happening is they're drilling down this message to men, and men and women. Like, women are hearing it and they're thinking, what the fuck? Why are you saying that about? Like, we should be included, sort of thing. So they're hating on these people because the same thing happened with Jordan Peterson, and it still happens today. And then you still get the men that fighting for women's rights and so on. They're not liking these people purely for the fact that they're speaking out to help only men. But
yeah,
you don't fucking like get pissed off with a company that sells a certain product, like makeup, for example. They sell them just to women. We don't get pissed off like, where the fuck's this shit for the men? Like, well, I don't use that.
yeah,
Why are you selling me something else? All these people are is like they're basically, well, not a business, but they're just got an audience out there and they've got their target audience and they're trying to grow on their platforms. So they're reaching out to their target audience so they get more of their target audience to watch them, just like going to buy a product. So that's what's happened with them is because they're on a platform where everyone can hear about them. Everyone thinks, oh, they're trying to push all this shit down my neck. But if no one actually stops and thinks about what they're actually doing, what they're actually saying.
yeah.
If you don't
Oh
agree
yeah.
with either of them, don't fucking
No,
listen to them.
nobody listens to him.
That's the
That's
thing.
why. Like, I remember when I spoke to you and we was gonna remember when we was gonna do the blogs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was gonna do one on. This was when I first sort of came across Andrew Tate, and I thought when I initially started listening to him, I thought, oh, this guy like he's saying like some of the right things, but he could be quite dangerous to like young minds who sort of take everything he says as gospel. So I was doing like loads of listening to Andrew Tate and loads of like research on him before I wrote anything because I didn't want to go in like blind and write something that I didn't mean. And I listened to the more and more I listened to it, I was like, fuck, he's like, what he's saying actually fucking makes sense. Um, there's some things, it's not that I don't agree with what he's saying. I think sometimes he goes about it a bit too, he does it to like start fucking like to get his name out there. So he'll be
Generate
like,
hype, yeah.
yeah, very like harsh and
He's
abrupt with
marketing
his
himself
words.
in a
Yeah.
crazy way, yeah.
Which is his way of fucking expressing it. And hats off to him, he's done a fucking sick job. Um, but well, yeah, the more and more I was listening to him, the more I was thinking actually this guy is talking a lot of sense, and I think a lot of young men actually need to listen to him because he's speaking from a angle where no, I've never been spoken to like as a young man or a young adult going into like going to be 30 in a couple of years. I've never like been spoken to or had advice along those lines or been expressed in that way. Which for me, like I'm quite level headed, so like I'll take some of it as like I'll take that on board. Some of it I'll leave because it is like there's things I know I agree with, and there's things like I may not agree with. But there are like what I'm trying to say here. Like, I think it's just he articulates himself a bit too harshly about certain topics. Um,
He's not as educated in that domain.
Whereas if you listen to people like, I think there's better people young people could listen to, but they're not as glamorous as him. So like Jordan Peterson, for example, I would probably recommend somebody to listen to Jordan Peterson over Andrew Tate. But again, with Jordan Peterson, don't take everything he says as gospel in it. Like, listen to him, take the bits you want to take on board, and then disregard the other bits. There might be a day where you come across him again and listen to those other bits and think, oh shit, that is something I actually agree with. But you can't just listen to somebody and I think the point I'm trying to make. You can't just listen to somebody and think he's Jesus and listen to every word he says, because nobody is like that. Like, you have to just take bits.
Yeah, because even I'm quite a big fan of Jordan Peterson, but it took me a few goes to actually. Because I said when I read his book the first time, like I didn't take hardly any of it in. I did. I found out now I did take some of it in, quite a bit of it in. But I don't know if it was like subconsciously or whatnot. But when I read it, I was like, I'm not fucking ready for this shit. Like, it's too much. Oh, it's too crazy. It's too out there and all that kind of shit. But reading his books now and listening to him now, I've developed myself over. I don't know how many years ago it was. I read it.
Yeah.
A good couple of years ago. But I've developed myself up to a stage now where I can listen to him and understand. If I don't agree with it, I don't agree with it, but I can understand what he's saying. And
Yeah.
that's the problem: is people don't understand. They're listening, but they're not understanding. They're listening, but they're not listening, and that's a big problem with our society at the moment. Anyway,
They're listening, and if he says something they don't like, they're getting irate and then disregarding everything else he's saying because he said one thing. So say, I know he talks a lot about these days. Talks a lot about climate change, for example. He'll say something that somebody feels really strongly about climate change, and it'll offend them. And then everything else he said, everything else that's good, goes out the window because he said there's one thing about climate change. And then every time he mentions Jordan Peterson to that person, they'll be like, oh, but he said this about climate change, so you got to disregard everything he said. I think that's wrong. He's got an opinion on climate change. He's said all this good stuff about personal development, especially for young males. Which
that's the thing. What you said, he's not Jesus. It's like, I know from being a human and having a channel of what we're doing, what we're 19 episodes in. I've said things like 2 or 3, maybe 4 weeks ago, which I've changed my opinion on now. But,
yeah,
like, people say things that they're thinking at the time, and yeah, just because they've got the camera on them, they're not like Hollywood stars where they're PR trained. These people are like just fucking maverick thinkers, where they're going above and beyond and trying to research and figure stuff out, and all they're doing is relaying their research back to us. And they're gonna say what day are we on today? Like 4th of Jan 2023. If you ask him a question today, and I'm asking that exact same question the same day but next year, I bet you he has a different answer. It might not be totally different, or it might be slightly different. But either or, he's gonna have a different answer because
because
different outlook on it.
He and Andrew Tate are people who have a progressive, like, they want to progress themselves, so they're constantly like thinking about new ideas and trying to better their ways of thinking.
Piece together the puzzle of their own mind.